The former president, out of nowhere, volunteered his own theory on where the breakdown in civil discourse is coming from.
I don't like it. I think the cables have a lot to do with it. I'm thinking back to when I was president, we got tons of criticism, but it didn't seem day in and day out quite as personal as some of these talk show people. And it's not just the right. There's plenty of people on the left. If you want me to name a couple of names, I'll be glad to do that for you.
Go ahead.
Keith Olbermann and Rachel Maddow. I mean, here's a couple of sick puppies.
Why is the former president calling me and Keith Olbermann sick puppies? I honestly do not know, but here's what he said next.
And the way they treat my son and treat anybody that's opposed to their point of view is just horrible.
What he's complaining about in terms of personalized complaint about other politicians, this current era of it, name-calling, he's the father of it. And I don't mean he's the father of George W. Bush. I mean he's the father of the process that took us to the place we are now. He is the man who employed Roger Ailes. He and Roger Ailes are the men who ran the Willie Horton ad against Mike Dukakis. He and Roger Ailes are the people who played the scam on Dan Rather. So it's very ironic to hear George H.W. Bush from this lofty perch and with real, I thought I heard anger in his voice against you and me. And this is where I give the former president something of a pass on this. That you'd have a blind spot. If your son had been president of the United States, you'd have a blind spot about how well or poorly he did. If your son happened to be George W. Bush, the blind spot would be the size of a galaxy. And you'd have to assume that criticism of him must necessarily be wrong and must necessarily be personal and vituperative as opposed to being predicated on what actually happened. It's so strange for him to assail name-calling and then call us names. But we saw that, Mr. McCain did that last year, too. There's something about people who start a certain tenor or give a certain tenor to American political life, or this is over the centuries, this isn't just recently, but there's something about this. When they take us down a path, if anybody else goes down that path who disagrees with them, they are startled, outraged, and take huge umbrage because only they are correct. And so this is what I think President Bush did, and I think it's kind of a sad legacy to a sad presidency.
And as I think the right has become more extreme, as Fox has become more extreme, particularly with their host, Mr. Beck now, I have been accused of being more extreme than I've ever been accused of before. I haven't changed, but I think people are looking for parity as a way of saying that there's a sort of incivility on both sides, just because that's a more convenient political point to make than saying that one side is really way more out of line than anybody else has ever seen.
I think George H.W. Bush understands that he has some responsibility for this. He's probably speaking in a way from some summoned guilt. Lee Atwater and George H.W. Bush, Roger Ailes, they were behind in a way the start of modern-day attack politics, which has now spread 24/7 in a way. You look at Fox News and some of the compadres there, it's sort of Willie Horton 24/7.